So it's been a year since the US tariffs were announced. Could you briefly tell us where we are now and how you will assess their impacts on Taiwan? And which sectors have been hit the hardest and why?
So at this moment, in April 2026, everyone, all countries, including Taiwan, are paying a 10% withstaking rate, MFN rate, based on a new legal foundation, which is Article 122 of the 1974 Trade Act of the US. But this 10% withstaking MFN rate is valid only for 150 days. Beyond July, we just have to wait and see how can Taiwan go back to the reciprocal agreement tariff, which is 15% with no staking, or we're going to see new tariff rate introduced. What's the sectors affected? Well, first of all, 70% of Taiwan's export into the US are high-tech sectors, high-tech products, semicon, AI servers primarily. And this part, 70% of these trade are not affected by the reciprocal tariffs. Well, they are subject to a separate Article 232 investigation, but that's a separate case. So for the 30% of Taiwan's export into the US who are subject to this additional reciprocal tariff, we're seeing some early effects already. Some are negative impacts. So in the whole year of 2025, we see a decline of export growth for chemical products, for basic metals, for textile, and also for transportation products. Most of these sectors affected, as I mentioned, are normally denoted as the traditional manufacturing sectors. All these traditional sectors are the backbones of any economy, Taiwan included. A large part of these companies' output stay in Taiwan and they become part of the supply chain into the high-tech sectors. So when their trade performance is under pressure, it impacts their revenue generating ability, their ability to invest in research and development, impact on their ability to recruit talents. They are already facing talent competition from the high-tech sector. And now because of the reduced revenues, their hands are tied even more.
What could be the best and worst scenarios for Taiwan's tariff deal moving forward with the US following the Section 301 investigation?
Well, the best scenario is they reduce the 15% to 10%. But I think the likelihood is quite limited because Trump wants to keep its tariff policy. And the Treasury Department is maintaining its predicted tariff revenue for 2026, which means they need to collect the revenue to achieve the target. So I think for Trump administration, the most efficient way to achieve the same outcome is to keep the outcome of the agreements before the ruling by simply changing the legal foundation for that. The worst case scenario is that, okay, they believe that 15% is too low, and after the investigation of Article 301, they decided that there are a lot of unfair practices existing across all the trading partners, and they decided to increase the tariff rate. Well, that's the scenario that everyone, including Taiwan, that are not willing to see. And also, I think the likelihood for that scenario is quite low because, the USTR Ambassador Grillo and also Secretary Benson from the Treasury are indicating that they understand there are agreements, they understand there are consensus reached among many trading partners, and they are going to take into account, they are going to accommodate all these agreements reached before the Supreme Court ruling.
How significant will tariffs be for Taiwan's economy in the coming year, and what potential challenges or barriers do you foresee?
I think one of the key indicators here is the GDP growth rate, right? And in general, GDP is the composition of a GDP comes with three pillars: domestic consumption, investment, both private and public investment, and balance of payment, that is trade, right? So the tariff rates, the direct impact of tariff rate will be primarily on the export performance. But because of the continuing growing demand from the US side for the high-tech products, I think, there's a general agreement in Taiwan that our trade performance will be even better than the year 2025. So the tariff rate is not going to undermine the overall trade performance. It will put pressure on some of the traditional sectors, but overall trade is going to grow even more in the year 2026. The latest forecast for GDP growth for Taiwan is about 7%, which is one of the largest number you can see globally. There are remaining challenges that need to be addressed by Taiwan. The domestic process to ratify the art or the reciprocal tariff rate is one of the biggest challenges. I think everyone understands the situation in Taiwan's parliament or legislative yuan, and it's ultra difficult, if not impossible, for the ruling party and the opposition parties to reach consensus on major questions or major issues, and tariff agreement included. Right.
How effective do you think U.S. tariff policy has been in reducing the tariff deficit and supporting domestic manufacturing?
Well, at this moment, we're not seeing direct indicators supporting the effectiveness of the tariff policy from the U.S. side. But we do see in the last 3 years, since President Trump's first administration, the tariff and other non-tariff shocks between US and China are really driving the global supply chain to leave China. In 2010, about 83% of Taiwan's outbound FDI went to China. In the year 2025, it comes down to about 3.7%. Why this is a good indicator? Because Taiwan is the backbone of the global supply chain. We are the key professional provider of manufacturing services. So we produce where our clients decide. So this dramatic drop of investment into China's manufacturing sectors suggests that the global supply system believes that for the next decades to come, we need to produce somewhere else, anywhere but China.